The last time I had a plagiarism case was because I gave the student the rope with which to hang himself. You ever done this? Students are struggling. So the student was missing some classes. I had him for 2 courses. I was teaching a first-year seminar program at Colorado State, where I was a writing center director and WAC coordinator. And the students were in a first-year program where they all lived in the same floor of the dorm. And they all took 3 courses together, and I had 2 of them. So I had this one student who was in my writing class and in my seminar class. And he was missing both, on and off. Turns out he had a job, fine. So I said, okay, we'll work around that. He was missing assignments. I said, okay, here's what to do. You've missed an entire paper. Just write me an essay and give it to me on Tuesday. And so there was 1 from each. And I should not have just said, write me an essay and give it to me on Tuesday. Because looking back on it, it's obvious. He's a struggling student. He's treading water. He's got issues with time management. Even though we did the whole calendar thing. That's one of my favorite assignments. Do your students get those little calendar books from the bookstore? I used to have students, when they got those for free, bring them in after ad drop. I would never do anything serious until ad drop was over, by the way. So the first few weeks before ad drop, the whole purpose of the first essay was not to grade a first essay. It was to teach peer review. Because I didn't want to have, after ad drop, somebody come in 2 weeks late and be behind an essay. But anyway, after ad drop, when they were settled on their courses, students would come in with these calendar books. And I would have them bring in all their syllabi from all their courses. And we would go through, and they would take, I would have them bring pens, and if they didn't have them, I would bring color pens, and I would bring red, green, and yellow. And then yellow didn't work, so I switched to blue because it's hard to read yellow. So I'd have red, green, and blue. And on due dates, they would put the due dates for all their papers in red. And then for every 2 to 5 pages, they would go back a week. So if it was a 10-page paper, on another course, they went back at least 2 weeks. And this was arbitrary. And then in green, they would write the start date. And halfway through, they would write the blue date. And I would say, start paper, have full draft done. And then in between, they would plug in their reading. So they had this color-coded schematic of their entire collection of writing that they had to do. Because as a writing teacher, I was concerned with all their writing, not just the writing I assigned. And I wanted them to keep their work in context and to sort of see the balance. So if you have those calendars or you print them out, it's a lot of fun, because then you're sitting there playing with crayons and colors and markers. People are flipping pages. You're walking around the class chatting to your students. They're looking over at each other's work. They're seeing where dates overlap and they have the same class. And you're helping them sort of set up these groups. But you're giving them that sort of premise. So this kid, he did that, but he was missing his own deadlines and he was missing my deadlines. And I didn't say to him, why are you missing your work? What's going on? Instead, I gave him 2 more assignments. And I got these assignments, and they were really good. I mean, they were well written. The diction was very elevated. And I didn't realize he was an expert on sharks. He did a paper on shark migration, of all things. I didn't know sharks migrated. I thought they just ate. But he had this wonderful paper, and I'm reading it, and I'm like, wow, you're a really good student if you just, and I'm saying, what, you idiot? Then I went over and looked at some of the other stuff he had done, and it was night and day. I didn't need Turnitin.com or plagiarism detection to know what had happened. So I did some phrase searching on Google, and I found the sources, and I went into class the next day, and I gave everybody a chance to revise. And it was one of those things where, you know, he's sitting here, and I did this thing, and I'm standing next to him. I'm saying, I've been reading your papers, and I'm tapping his desk. And a lot of you have mistakes in source handling. You know, I'm just doing random searches on Google and finding phrases that are appearing uncited and unindented in your papers. Make sure you correct that by next week, okay? You got it? And then I would go around the room and I'd check with students one-on-one, do you need any help with this? And I said, you know, you've got a lot of this. And he says, I got it under control. Got the papers back, and he corrected 1/3 of the ones that were easiest to find. He figured out what I did. But some of the more esoteric sources, I had to look a little bit farther for, and I found them. And then I boxed myself in a position where I had to flunk them. I had to flunk them on those papers, and then I flunked them in the courses, and then, you know. But it's because I didn't handle it well. I let him slip. So one of the other things I learned from that is, if you're putting in policies of saying drafts matter and you're going to collect things, is to make that process part of the grading. The grade was based on the final paper. So I said, oh, wait a minute. So I switched it now. And if you're teaching writing, whether you're teaching in a college writing course where you're teaching process, or you're teaching chemistry or nursing or any other subject, and you require writing, collect drafts. Even if you don't have time to read them. You don't have to read them to collect them. By setting deadlines and asking for the implements and the increments in the writing, you're training students to do things in stages. You're training students to do what they should do as good students, not do the work at the last minute. Because if they do it at the last minute, they're going to go to the library, they're going to sit in the carrel, they're going to have a stack of books, and they're going to get a patchwork quilt. Rebecca Moore Howard, who's an expert on plagiarism and research writing, calls it patch writing. And you see it all the time. Student says, pick a topic, any topic. Somebody name a topic.
Shark migration.
Shark migration. So you get shark migration. Shark migration is a very important subject to understand. As you know, sharks migrate through the waters, and this changes the chemistry of the sea. As we can see, and then a long quote, and then a short passage that restates the quote. Then another factor in shark migration is the need for food. Some marine biologists talking about sharks needing food. A summary saying, as you can see, sharks need food. Another factor, and it's patch, quilt, patch, quilt, patch, quilt, patch, quilt. And then the lazy student will realize, oh my God, I'm not in this essay. So source, hey, I wrote that. And they slip into plagiarism. But it's because you're not giving them the requirement to think carefully about their writing, and so at the last minute they run in, and it looks like every other research paper you read, and it's just boring the heck out of you, and you hate reading it, and you can see there's no voice, and there's no point of view, and there's no argument, and you're like, why did I sign this? It was so much better over the summer when this was going to be a beautiful, sexy paper, and now I got this drab thing at the door. Can I just leave the flowers and go? And you can't, because you have to grade it.